The government has filed a fresh affidavit in the Rohingya refugee case. This is the big story we are tracking at this hour. The Indian government has filed a fresh affidavit before the country's apex court in the ongoing Rohingya refugees case. Joining me on the broadcast is WION's correspondent Jessica Taneja. She joins me from WION's newsroom. Good afternoon, Jessica. What more details do we have about this fresh affidavit filed by the centre in the Supreme Court today?
Well, Raghavendra, the centre has reiterated what it had said earlier in the apex court. Remember, this case is ongoing, and this case pertains to fresh PILs that were filed in the apex court, preventing the return of Rohingya refugees from the Indian border. Now, the government has clearly stated that, in fact, the Ministry of Home Affairs has come out with this affidavit saying that this is completely a policy decision that the country is taking to protect its land and soil from infiltrators who, according to them, could be alleged terrorists and also other terror outfits where the guard and the borders need to be guarded. So, of course, coming back to the same point where the centre has been saying that they're not using any external influences to, put them away from border or do any harm to the Rohingya refugees in the border. But at the same time, it says that it is important to protect the Indian soil. Also, Jessica, if I remember correctly, the Indian government has so far maintained, and as you also said a while back, that Rohingyas are indeed a security threat. The Rohingyas who have migrated to India and have settled here in various cities, they have been dubbed a security threat, and that was the reason why the Indian government wanted to deport all of them back. Now, is today's affidavit just a reiteration of that, or is there anything more which the centre has now told the Supreme Court? Absolutely, Raghavendra. There are some additions in this affidavit where the MHA says that this is completely part of the policy that the Indian government has undertaken, and because the PILs that were filed in the apex court against the deportation of Rohingya refugees had said that grenades and chili powder was being used on these refugees who have fled Myanmar because of possible persecution, and this was in fact quite inhuman if this was happening on the Indian borders where the case is still ongoing. Interestingly, to also point out, Raghavendra, in the affidavit, the Ministry of Home Affairs clearly states that they've actually created a sort of a parity where they say that the Sri Lankan Tamils back in the year 1964 and 1970 were allowed to cross the Indian border and come to India only because India and Sri Lanka had certain agreements to that effect, wherein India and Myanmar do not have similar agreements to allow Rohingya refugees on Indian soil. So this is another addition, but also looking back to the whole case, Raghavendra, you might remember, of course, the centre had clearly taken a stand and said that the Rohingya refugees are a security threat to the country, but at the same time they also retracted their statement and said that this is not what the government meant. The government only meant to protect the Indian soil from possible terrorist activities or infiltration bids which could harm the soil.